Okay, a little bit about this. The Vulcan Sky Trust. The Waltons couldn't get the money out of the lottery grant because they weren't a charity or anything. So the trust was formed to actually run the project and do the project, and they bought the aircraft from the Waltons. And they're the ones that looks after the education, the gift aids, the bits and pieces. And then what we have then is the operating company, which is myself, the engineers, and we do all the work on it. And then on the other side is the enterprises. They do all the various bits of the fundraising and the shop and hopefully some nice bits and pieces. But one of the most important things underneath there is the Vulcan to the Sky Club. It's a club that's run who are extreme enthusiasts of the aircraft, and it is the largest aviation club in the world. There's over 7,000 members now, which doubled last year once we got the aircraft flying again, and it's well worth the money. Half of your subscriptions that you pay to the club actually go to the aircraft themselves. They do various fundraising, and you get various magazines. I've got one or two magazines down here, I haven't got many of them. Leaflets, news, updates. There's 3 or 4 coloured brochures you get every year. There's various talks and visits and all that one as well. So by joining the club, not only do you actually help the aircraft, but you actually get something for yourselves as well, which I prefer instead of just trying to hit you for the money all the time. As I said, there's all the main players we've got there. BAE Systems, they are the design authority. They bought AV Row out, so obviously they go there. We have Marshall's Aerospace, they're the engineering authority. Obviously there's only 4 or 5 of us engineers on the aircraft. We weren't a big enough company to do it, so the CAA had to stimulate, we had to get a major company in to back us. And then obviously Rolls-Royce for the year. And then up at the top we have the Committee Against Aircraft, who obviously oversees everything that goes on. And so these are some of the manufacturers that we had to trace down and help and get them on board to actually help us do all the work. Okay, so the timeline. We started back in 2005, so from the initial one about 2000, 2001, we didn't actually physically start on the aircraft till 2005. And obviously we got the CAA had to come in and audit the facilities and everything, make sure it was right. It took us about a year just to do the inspections. What they stated was, not only did we have to do a major servicing that was required, but we had to do an enhanced inspection on all the wiring and all the systems. Every component that moved, rotables or whatever, had to be removed and go back to the original manufacturer. All the fuel pipes, oxygen pipes, hydraulic pipes had to be removed from the aircraft and replaced. If they couldn't be replaced, they had to be cleaned, flushed and refitted again. Every single wire had to be inspected as far as possible, and there's only 14 or so miles of it. And it's actually, the cable is Pren, which is the old rubber base, like the old household electrical wiring. I'm lucky. So, and then it took about a year as well then to do the rectifications and all the functionals, because we had completely stripped this down to the shell, so we had to rebuild it all and then check it all out. And then obviously the flying part towards the end of 2007. Now, a little tour of where we are. There she is, down at Bruntingthorpe, sat in the hangar, nice and pretty. We do, if any are ever across Leicestershire, they actually do hangar tours on a Sunday between 10 and 4, so you're more welcome to go around. And there's also another Cold War museum down there as well. Okay, the team that done the major, so it took us just over 2 years to do the major, and on average is about between 50 and 30 of us. And that's from the engineers, the marshals, technicians, logistics, admin staff, and whatever. And so that's most of us all there. And that's so many people used to do down at St. Athens. Needless to say, it only took 10 to 12 weeks, and they had everything in stock, on the shelf, and they all knew what they were doing. They'd spent years actually working the aircraft down there. On this project, there is only 2 of us that have ever worked on the Vulcan before. Back to school. What we had to do, again by the CAA, we all had to do a training course. And basically, we started off with a 3-week introduction course, though. This is the front, this is the back, mind don't bump your head. So we could actually go and work on the aircraft, and then we had to do another level 3 course. Now the level 3 courses are into the system and go to the same depths as licensed engineers do for the 707s, 747s, the Airbuses. It's a type-rated course, and we all had to go and do them course then, which again was for another 9 weeks, or a couple of months in the classroom. We were lucky enough to actually have some of the old technical training boards, which were again from the 1960s, and especially on the electrical boards, they had relays that you could move over and everything. Ever so handy. Still use them now and again. Non-destructive testing. Obviously, we needed to x-ray and check out the aircraft. It was been in the service for over 30 odd years. They knew where the problem areas are, so we didn't bother reinventing the wheel. We just went and x-rayed the bits that they normally x-rayed and found no problems at all. But what we did do then is go modern technology. The old boroscope, videoscope and all that lot. You know, like the doctor's one with a little light and camera and go to places. And where you're actually looking is right down the front edge of that leading edge there. Somewhere we would never be able to get to unless we totally de-skinned the aircraft. And as you can see, that disgusting corrosion that you can see there. Generally, for an aircraft that's nearly 50 years old, it was in excellent condition. We did find some corrosion, which I'll come to later, but generally it was in good condition. As I said with the wiring, this is the flying controls. Being the crew chief, and I'll be flying in the aircraft, I just rewire these as a matter of course, just to be on the safe side. But all in all, we rewired nearly 5 miles of wiring. Where it was in the undercarriage bays and it was exposed to the atmosphere, it just broke away now. But where it was in the main cabin or down conduits, it was in excellent condition, so obviously they are still there. Spares, so we bought over 800 tons of spares with the aircraft, so we had lots of some stuff, not much of the others. Now in the last year in the display team, the aircrew were forever complaining that the air conditioning wasn't working on the aircraft. So they were coming down, middle of the summer, hot day, flying low level, doing a lot of work, it was quite hot. Now the air conditioning unit used to be working up at 50, 60,000 feet, basically warming the air up a bit so they could have cold air in the cockpit. So obviously when it's low level, it's not very efficient, but they were saying it was really bad. So we operated the valves, everything seemed to be working. But when we actually took it out to do the maintenance, we locked up the cold air unit and there was no blades on the fan. So we're as good as Stafford. We didn't have any spares for it or anything, so I thought, oh, well, they'll just have to do without it. They did in the last year. But one of our volunteers was actually down in our deep store looking for something else, and actually came across a brand new, freshly overhauled air conditioning unit, and we've just hooked that up to our air starter, and as you can see there is actually cold air coming out of there now. Aircrew's still saying it's a bit warm, but I think that's their age. Main landing gears, these went away to Kersley's who were working on behalf of Messi and Doughty, and as you can see these were stripped right back down to the basics, cleaned up, checked all over, and then rebuilt and sent back to us. Fuel tanks, 14 fuel tanks on the aircraft, holds 74,000 pounds of fuel, which is around 30 or 40,000 litres I think, and they're all bag tanks. Some of them were actually perished and all that, and the OEM actually reverse engineered and actually built this one or two of the tanks, but generally they were in a good state. Here we have the chassis mounted fuel system, the carburettor. I said this has been sat on the engine for 25 years.